record the session. On that note, I'd like to hand over to Team 4 to share their learning, journey, and experience with us this evening on Competence 4, Cultivate Trust and Safety. Team 4, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Coach Lara Eku. Thank you so much. So my name is Yetunde Balogun, and I'll be representing Group 4 for the Cultivate Trust and Safety presentation. I'll just go straight to the table of contents, whereby we'll have introduction. Yes, so this is it. So I'll go straight to the table of content, where we'll be discussing the introduction, what is team coaching, objectives of team coaching, competency elements centered on trust and safety. I'll have one of my team members come to shed more light with a case study. Then we'll take the conclusion and question and answers. So the next slide, which centers on the introduction, coaching, like other assistant programs such as mentoring, counseling, therapy, has moved from a nice to have to a must have. In the wake of the pandemic, which is a reality since 2019, individuals and businesses seeking to deliver results by maximizing performance are prioritizing coaching as an intervention. Individuals and team coaching are recognized as critical interventions at the forefront of unlocking potentials and creating value that directly and positively impact individuals and business goals. So the next slide, we'll be talking about what team coaching is particularly. And here we see that it's the act of facilitating and challenging a real team to maximize its performance and enjoyment in service of meaningful organizational goals. On this, I just want to further discuss that it's also for a team to maximize its performance and enjoyment in service. The team coach must also have a significant knowledge base when working with teams or individuals, because as a team coach, they will be required to identify and resolve conflicts from time to time in an organization. Also, they would also be required to identify power dynamics within the team. So, and in all of this, if you don't have a required knowledge for this, it will be difficult for you to be able to act as you should. So for the next slide, which we'll be looking at right now, it focuses on the objectives of team coaching. The first one says, align team around a common purpose, establish inspiring spirit and vision, define clear roles, commit to team accountability, make powerful choices, and take affirmative actions. The next point says, allow teams reach their goals while creating a sustainable environment that cultivates long-term excellence and success. The third one, the next slide we'll be looking at basically is on the competency elements, which has to do with trust and safety itself. The ICF competency of trust and safety seeks to achieve the following objectives. 1, create and maintain a safe place for open and honest team members' interaction. Promote the team viewing itself as a single entity with a common identity. Foster expression of individual team members and the collective team's feelings, perceptions, concerns, beliefs, hopes, and suggestions. The fourth one, please, the next slide. So the fourth one has to do with encourage participation and contribution by all team members. The fifth one has to do with partner with the team to develop and maintain and reflect on team's rules and norms. The sixth one has to do with promote effective communication with the team. Then the last one has to do with partner with the team to identify and resolve internal issues. I also want to add that in all of this, a team coach should also be perceived as one who who's not necessarily taking sides at any point in time, either with any individual or any subgroups. It's important that we do not take sides. Even when discussions with team members come up, we'll need to ensure that when issues are shared with us, we keep it with in top confidentiality. We don't share people's information. We keep it safe, because unless the individual allows you to disclose anything to anyone, information is very key, because it's when you keep information that they feel a sense of security at every point in time. So the next slide, please, the next slide, which would be taken by one of the team members, Toyin Ismail. She'll be looking critically with a case study, which is the Toward Limited Team Coaching Experience.
Okay, thank you, Yetunde. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, everyone. So I'll be talking about the case study. And we've brought out a case study today to sort of illustrate the way these competencies have been used in an organization to achieve great objectives, and not just objectives for 1 year, but there are things that were learned from this process that the organization has chosen to incorporate in the way they do business. Today's case study looks at Toward Limited. Toward Limited is an executive coaching firm in the States, and they were contracted by a global equity specialist firm to conduct executive leadership coaching for the leadership team of the organization. Prior to doing that, they had an issue of a blame culture. And what they wanted to achieve were on 3 levels. 1, to build a stronger executive team. Secondly, to build trust and collaborative relationships at executive level. And then also to intensify their strategic focus and dialogue within the team. So really focusing on where the business wants to go, rather than focusing on the personal issues they have with each other. And in doing that, they followed 4 basic steps. The first was to the diagnostic stage, which was really to conduct a deep dive to say, look, what are the issues? And by doing this, they got information from everyone. So what are the issues? What are the problems you see? And what are the main challenges? That information was used in designing different interventions that were implemented. There were deliveries also of the different intervention, and then an evaluation. But one of the things that comes through the case study when you read it was the fact that at each point in time, they created a safe environment. For instance, when you're in the diagnostic stage, without people feeling comfortable and safe to share information, people will keep mum about issues that are happening within the organization. So they were able to create that safe net where people felt, okay, you know what, if I actually speak about what the challenges I'm having are, there's likely to be a solution. They were also able to encourage openness. Can people openly discuss even with each other? Because, remember, it's a progressive one. Diagnostic is individual. The team goes back, they design the intervention, but when they come back for the delivery, it's more of group work. Because remember, in this particular case study, it was team coaching that was the chosen method, to resolve the issues. They were able to create openness within the team. They were able to encourage dialogue. They were able to guide them on how to give feedback to each other. Also, they were able to help them rally around a common purpose and vision, which was going to drive, the sort of way that they're going to continue to work together as a business. Also, people had to commit. When we come together as a team, when we're being coached as a team, we're individuals, but we also function as one entity. And a commitment to that team is very, very critical. So that they were also able to foster within the team and for them to come up with action plans. One thing that I liked that they also included as part of what they did was helping them distress from the pressures of work. So you know what? It was a case of, look, let's come together as an executive team and look at how we can make things happen better. let's push all our issues at work away and let's come together and say, you know what, where do we want to go? So this is where the whole issue of purpose and vision comes in. You know, when you're able to see where you're going and you look at where you are today, how far away are you from it? So pushing all those issues aside and saying, okay, you know what do we really want to achieve? What will be our ideal picture of how the executive leadership team should work? And at the end of this intervention, they worked with this executive team for 2 years. Some of the results they came up with was improved relationship at executive level. The executive leadership team interacted better with each other. There was a lot more maturity. They were open to receiving and giving feedback, unlike before where it was, oh, you did this and you did that, where it was more of a blame game. They were able to also improve trust. They were able to create openness around decision making, no silos. Let's sit together, let's have these conversations. They were having honest conversations with each other, you know, deep things that had been buried. You know how, you know, in organizations, there are some deep issues. Nobody's talking, everybody's just saying, They were able to root those things out and actually bring them to the table for discussion. They understood each other better, understood each other's motivators, because they had created an environment where they could be vulnerable. You know, Toyin wasn't scared sharing with Lara, she wasn't scared sharing with Moreni KG, because we could see that we were one, even though we were individuals, but we were one also as a team in driving the vision of this organization. They showed a lot more care to each other, you know, and more importantly, all of this helped them to deliver on their business results. So not only did they see an improvement in the relationship, in the interaction, in the way the team worked, but also the business was positively affected by the ability of the executive leadership team to work together. And as a result, they decided to inculcate coaching as a culture, you know, within the organization at various levels. I know Lara had mentioned that earlier, that more and more organizations are incorporating coaching as an intervention. You know, it also improved the employee engagement survey. Year on year, they found out that the survey results were better. And, you know, it was so good that people were even pointing to particular things about the executive leadership team that they saw that was different, you know, because it was that obvious that this particular intervention had helped them as an organization to improve. And also with feedback, more feedback and recommendations from employees, it made employees even feel more comfortable, because that safe environment that was created during that session with the Towards Limited was translated into the organization. And employees felt safe now, you know, actually giving feedback and making recommendations. For me, it was a really good case study for me to use to illustrate, you know, the things that we have learned, not just the one thing we're talking about today, which is trust and safety, but other competencies, you know, that we've discussed over time on this platform. On the next slide, I have a quote from one of the participants, and it says, the work we have done with Toward has had a massive impact on our executive team performance. The journey we have embarked on has ensured we address our team's issues in an honest and unthreatening way. This meant there was nothing festering, and it has allowed the team to push through to being more collaborative, challenging, and effective. The Toward approach allows the sessions to flow and never feel that there's a generic process. The approach feels like more of a journey that they adapt to the areas the team needs to focus on. I believe a critical factor in the success has been that they created an environment which builds strong levels of trust, both within the team and between the team and Towards. So that was feedback from a participant on that program. So we can see that that intervention really hit the bullseye for them as an organization. So in conclusion, I would say that as individual and team coaching continues to gain prominence in the business and personal space, it's important for us to prioritize trust and safety. Honestly, trust is the bedrock of any organization. I remember working with, my first work after NYSC was with EcoBank, you know, and you know, with banks, you have certain payments that come in at different times of the year. And I think there was a particular allowance they had paid, but I hadn't received my pay. So I told one of my colleagues, and the first thing he told me, I said, Tony, don't worry. EcoBank will never owe you money. That they'll pay it to you. Maybe they're doing it in batches. Don't worry. And it struck something in me. This guy trusts that, what, these people cannot. Don't worry. At least on this note, I can vouch for them. And, it's one of those things that would endear an employee to an organization. So that really, really holds a lot of, it holds a lot of water, and it's very relevant even today in the organizations that we work with. So we just close by saying that these, along with other ICF competencies, remain the bedrock of a successful coaching intervention. I hope you've enjoyed our presentation this evening. If you have any questions, we're available to answer them. Thank you.
Well done, well done, well done. Short and sharp, straight to the point. Powerful, loaded. Amazing. Thank you so much, Team 4. Any member of the team wants to share anything else? Thank you. Amazing session. Very professional, short, direct, and powerful. Thank you. We'll leave the floor for other members of your team to share one or two things from the learnings with us. And at the same time, we'll take comments, questions, and answers. I have a couple of questions already, but I'd like other people to go first. So members of the team would like to hear from you. For me, the whole essence of having everyone come together is also to learn as a team. Tony said something, as teams, we're all individuals first. So what do we all bring on the table as individual collectively to enable the team achieve its goals? So on that note, so guys, team members of Team 4 would like to hear from you. Thank you. Thank you to Tony and to Yetunde for that powerful presentation.
Yes, please. One thing that, we would also like to emphasize as a team is, looking at the case study and the fact that they started with a diagnostic session showed their willingness to listen, and listening is one of those critical skills that is needed in coaching. Not just listening to words, listening to behaviors, listening to the unspoken, language which is being given off. So that is one of the things, that we also want to emphasize, that as coaches, doing team coaching, it's important for us to listen to the dynamics within the team, as had been mentioned by both Yetunde and Tony during the course of the presentation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, KG, for sharing that. And that brought an idea to my mind as well. So from the point where we are listening to other team members, that helps us to understand the verbal and non-verbal cues. And from there, we can build rapport. So when you listen, beyond just what they're saying, you're also watching their body language, and you can build rapport. When you're listening, you're actively listening to them, and you can mirror them at some point, okay? Because when you build rapport, then there's that connection that happens. And from the connection, it also leads to trust. Then it leads to them feeling very safe and secure, and they open up more. And once that happens, then trust definitely happens at that point. So thank you, that's a great point you've mentioned. So listen first so we can understand the body language, the verbal and the non-verbal cues. From there, build rapport and then build connection with them. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other member from the team? We're here to learn together. Oh, okay. No more words. Well done. Thank you, TDA. Damola, what about you? Any word from you? Other team members? Damola, we have Damola in the house, I guess. Okay. All right. So questions at this point or comments? Questions or comments from anyone? I think I have a question and I'll go ahead. So please, if you have questions, feel free to either type your question in the chat box, or you can raise your hand or go off mute and then ask your question verbally. So I have a question. When we talk about building trust and as HR leaders within an organization, at what point do you think you're able to build trust where your employees can confide in you and you know that the information they are sharing with you is in confidence? However, their intention might likely impact the team or the organization, either positively or negatively. So how do you bring that balance to ensuring that you're still able to create that atmosphere where they can trust you and share deep things with you, even though you know that their action might likely impact the organization? I'll give an example. So for instance, you have one of your key talents within the organization. The business has had a couple of conversation or discussion on how to retain that talent. Then the talent comes and confides in you that they have other plans for themselves. And you know that if the business goes ahead to invest in that talent or in that team, there might not be return on investment. So how do you build that trust to ensure that even though the employee or the individual confides in you, the information that you have, you are still able to manage it to ensure that their trust in you is not broken? Anyone wants to go for that? Anyone?
Okay, so for me, I would say that, so I'm in between now. I'm in between the employee who has trusted me with valuable information, and I'm also in that position as the face of management, knowing some things that the employee does not know. And so for me, I will treat it this way, that trust must come both ways. So the employee must also trust me that while he or she has confided in me, whatever decision or action I'm going to take by virtue of the information I have, then he or she must trust me that it's in their best interest. So for me, openness comes to play here. So while the person lays the card on the table, I would also approach it from that angle, talking to that person to say, I would also have to lay the cards on the table for you. So I've been in that situation where to be promoted, but at the other, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. We lost you for a bit.
So my discussion went ahead to, so my discussion, hold on, please. So my discussion went as far as telling the person, while you expect this promotion, you will not have this promotion. You will not have this promotion, so that we're not setting the company on a wild goose chase.
Yeah.
I know you will be exiting in so and so time. So let's manage your career along that line. Do you feel bad about it? It's not left for me to start. I have to start managing her to say, well, if the company promotes you, this is our own expectation from you. Now you have shared yours with me. So the information is still between the two of us. Management did not have to know that she was exiting. So at the calibration session, I just said I was stepping down her promotion. And they said, what were my reasons? I said, there were further developments that she had to go through. And at this time, I believe she wasn't ripe enough for it. And we stepped it down. But she was glad that I was open to her in terms of managing her expectation, and at the same time to not revealing her thoughts or her plans to core management. I hope that answers it.
Yeah, thanks. And I think you brought up a very valid point where even sometimes as HR leaders, we represent the best interest of leadership, management, even though they might not be aware of what you've done, but you've been able, they might not be aware of what you've done. But even in their absence, I mean, you've been able to come across as a trusted advisor to that employee. So 2 ways. Wow. Thank you. Thanks, TDA, for sharing that. So my next question is, when we talk about building safe and trust environment for our team members, during the presentation, feedback was mentioned. What do you do when you are in an organization where the leaders find it very difficult to accept feedback, right? And you know that for you to begin to incorporate team coaching into your organization or into your team, feedback is really important. 1, leaders don't give feedback. 2, the team members also do not even give feedback, because at the end of the day, their belief is, what is going to be the use of giving feedback? We give feedback whether you like it or not, nothing changes. So how can we as coaches what can we do to shift the thinking around building trust and a safe place with regards to giving and accepting feedback in our organization? Any thoughts?
So for us sorry, I'm coming up again.
Oh, sure.
So for us as HR professionals, while we want to implement our initiatives, which we believe are in the best interest of the organization, it's important that we open up avenues to get feedback from our employees. So in terms of coaching, what we have done, because we have a coaching and mentoring framework, what I won't say is deep-seated, I would say is still in the early stages. What we've done is that we always have surveys. We always have surveys just to feel the pulse of employees when we implement initiatives, so that they're able to give us direct feedback. Feedback is always important, that, okay, in terms of this particular initiative, how successful was the implementation, and what are the areas we need to improve on? And so when we gather those feedback, we now go back and then how will I say it? I don't want to use the re-implement, reform those initiatives. Reform those initiatives. But the underlying thing at the end of the day is to build an environment of trust and safety. What is peculiar around team coaching is that while it's a team, we have individuals in that team. And the individuals must be able to trust the coach enough that, okay, whatever I've shared with you or whatever you have shared with me stays between the two of us. And at the same time also, there must be that inclusiveness to ensure that the entire team is carried along with the coaching practice or whatever the coaching strategy the coach is trying to implement within the organization. So getting feedback, we do a lot of surveys. We do a lot of surveys.
Yeah.
Just to feel the pulse all the time.
Oh, great. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to ask. Okay, I wanted to ask something. Okay, so in the organization.
Go ahead, TDA.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. So yeah, I do agree with TDA, because one of the things, I mean, the different places I've worked in, we have the employee engagement survey we conduct every year, you know, and you find that at times, even when your numbers look good, when you look in the comment section, employees actually give feedback, you know, and it's really about going with the senior management team, I think, for me, you know, to sort of share that feedback, because that feedback is very, if you look at surveys over 3 years, and if you look at feedback, there will be some that will be recurring. There are some that are giving, maybe things around salary and all, but there are a few others that maybe low-hanging fruits, for the organization, that they can actually implement. And honestly, when you implement and the leadership team sees how employees react to that implementation, I think it would spur them on. I think like everybody else, the leadership team also is probably a bit worried about bad feedback, negative feedback, and things like that, or at times afraid to confront their fears, to confront the challenges that they have, and I think that is why at times some of them push back on it. But the truth is, to get this level of change or the level of feedback, build the sort of trust that you want, you need a great part of the leadership team to be involved. But there's nothing wrong with starting small. If there's an area where the leader is willing, to work with you, I think there's an opportunity there, and it's something that you can really ride on. I remember working on a change management program once in an organization. And with this change management program, I reported directly to the CEO and the executive leadership team. And one of them called me and said, look, Tony, we know what to do. We're just not doing it. It's not like we don't know what to do. And that really just confirmed some of the things that I've always thought. Leaders know what to do. At times, they just need a compelling reason. I think this is where analytics begins to become very relevant. If we can use numbers also, to represent some of the things that we want to share with them, then it becomes glaring, because at times you can't argue with numbers, But I would say that let's start small. If one person is willing, let's start with that person's team. When something good is happening, it doesn't take long before it starts affecting everybody else within the organization. But I agree with TDO. There's nothing that beats really feedback coming directly from employees and acting on that feedback. It's a very quick way of gaining their trust.
Yeah.
Let me just add more to that. Okay, so I work with a company that is 26 years old. Not wanting to hear the bad news from employees. And so we did not our employee engagement surveys until 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, we do ours every quarter. And so we do ours every quarter, and we're doing the village meeting for Q1 on
Tidi, are you still there? Tidi, you've gone on mute, so. Tidi, you're on mute? In case you're talking. Tidi, we can't hear you. Oh, wow. Maybe she's having network issues. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear now. Please go ahead. Oh, we can't hear you again.
Oh, okay. I don't know where.
Okay, now I can hear you. The last I heard was your town hall meeting every quarter.
Okay, yeah, so we're having our town hall meeting for Q1. And like Tony said, when you have in your survey space for them to actually express their thoughts in the comment section, you would see the things that actually matter to them. And so if you're able to address the low-hanging fruits, you are able to engender trust within the organization. And when you're able to engender trust, other things, other initiatives that HR is trying to bring on board become simple to implement, because we're able to engender trust. So we are having ours on Friday. We're having ours on Friday, the village meeting.
Yeah, fantastic. And that really works. I mean, I tried it last month. So we were having our end of the FY meeting. And basically at this meeting, so the top executive will come and talk about the business performance, blah, blah, blah. And I said to them that we should have we should do a pulse survey ahead of the meeting, just to hear, just to feel the pulse of the employees with regards to our business performance and everything. And the results were amazing. Normally, the meeting would have was discussing business, numbers, volume, production, blah, blah, blah. But because we focused on the feedback from the pulse survey, it was more around attitude, basic thing around ownership, around leadership, around accountability, accepting and taking responsibility. And the entire meeting discussion was geared towards that. I kid you not, the feedback survey that we did afterwards had the most engaging business town hall meeting, just because we wanted to hear what was important to them, like TDM rightly mentioned, wanted to hear what was important to them. And they said it was not about our business numbers, but rather it was around those similar things around behavior, recognition, acceptance, ownership, and for me, that was it. So it does help to carry out such surveys so we can get feedback. Then those low-hanging fruits, discuss it, implement it as quickly as possible. Let them see the feedback, let them see the results, let them see the changes. That way, they're able to build trust. And for us, it's easier for us as HR professionals and as even team leads and coaches to further have discussions on other bigger initiatives within the organization. Okay, we have about 13 minutes more. We have 21 people on this call. It's just 4 or 5 people that have been talking since. It's a learning session. We're all expected to read and learn and share. So please, any other contribution from anyone in the house? We have our senior coaches in the house. Coach Tolu, would like to hear from you. Around today's topic, cultivate trust and safety in team coaching. Ayodeji, Adetitu, okay, Yele, your hand is up. Go ahead, Yele, you can go off mute and speak. Go ahead, Yele. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Coach Lara. Good evening, everyone. We had a very interesting discussion today about team coaching and building trust, in employees. I have a question for the experts in the house, right? So we've talked about town hall meetings, and I think quite a lot of structured organizations have such meetings. From experience, I've found out that some employees actually become very closed, right? When they realize that in the past sessions that they've attended, they were quite open, right? Because they felt they could trust the organization or the management. And at some point, they were witch hunted, right? You're being open because you want the company to grow. And then somehow you begin to hear, some of the comments made by management about your contributions. And, the next town hall meeting you want to attend, you just want to remain calm and just keep quiet, right? And that way, those town hall meetings just become rituals that we don't have the desired impact on the organization. So to the HR experts, what can HR do? Because, we usually crack a joke in my company that HR personnel are also employees of the company, so there's just so much they can do to impact on such management, right? What can HR professionals do in that regard when such meetings are when they no longer have impact, right? You get to ask questions like, does anybody have anything to say? And you just see people say they're fine, or correct. What can be done in such an instance, right? To rebuild that confidence in management, right? I just thought to ask.
That's a very interesting question. Thanks, Yele, for asking. I have my answers, but I'll leave the floor open for other colleagues in the house, our HR leaders, our coaches.
Okay. If I can just add, if I can just chip in my own.
Go ahead, TD.
When a company is going through change, when a company is going through, I'll call it a people and culture transformation, it speaks, everything starts and ends with leadership. Leadership must be ready to walk the talk. And so in that instance, the work has to be done by HR with leadership first to get their buy-in. Now, when you get their buy-in, you need to script out your process and your policies around every of your initiatives in HR. So I'll give myself an example. In 2017, when I came in, I said, so you're trying to engender trust within the system. These are the various initiatives. Your employee engagement surveys must happen. Your village meetings must happen. You must create an environment of trust and safety for your people, an environment of openness and transparency, and commit to it that there will be no backlash. So we had that policy. I won't call it a policy. It was more like a statement. The company would have village meetings every quarter, whereby HR would do a review of all initiatives done and then harvest feedback. Now, the session would happen in an open environment. The feedback will be projected on the screen with the names of the employees. Management will sit down and address them one by one. So, we had a script, we had a statement, and everybody signed that statement so that we all know that we're all in it together. Now, when the
Okay, TD,
first one happened, of course, that their body language was changing and related to doing this.
Okay.
So when we had the first village meeting, of course, the body language of management wasn't 100% receptive because employees became so vocal and were able to express themselves. So I had to remind them to say, we are committed to doing this. You need to respond to them. And then also we have to communicate to employees that while you are giving your feedback, it must be in a cordial, friendly, non-aggressive way. You must not be rude and things like that. So, you have to, let me use one of the words we use in coaching. You have to be intentional about it and deliberate about it. Get the commitment of all the parties concerned and ensure that it is properly implemented. It will work. If not, it will be an effort in futility, running village meetings and your employees clamp up. That is not a village meeting and there will be no progress. So going back again, it has to do with leadership. So HR should work with leadership and get them to the level whereby they are ready to open up. If they're not ready to open up, then there's no need for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, TDA. I think that was extremely spot on, TDA. Thank you. For me, if the open discussions are not working, you need to find out what would work. And like TDA rightly mentioned, it has to start from leadership. Maybe an anonymous survey might be what would work. You might want to go that route to get them to at least give their feedback first. And from there, get the management team to respond to ensure that whatever concerns were raised, that is also being addressed adequately. And let them see. And of course, let them come out openly and clearly to everyone to also get them to trust them that regardless of whatever feedback they give, that the employees give to management, there will be no retaliation. I mean, I worked in Accenture. One of the things that really helped us in Accenture was a no retaliation policy. I mean, even me, I use that policy to the maximum, no retaliation policy. If my boss is getting on my nerves, the next thing I'm quoting that policy, I'm reporting her and I'm quoting that policy, no retaliation. Because that is what holds the company at bound. So they are bound by their policy, no retaliation policy, and that sort of helped create that environment where employees felt safer and freer to talk about issues. Okay, thank you. Any other contribution?
Okay, Lara.
Tayo, hi.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry. Yeah, good evening. Sorry, permit me to say one of the things on this in line with the last question.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Together. Sure, go ahead.
Okay. You spoke my mind, one of the things is, if village meeting, open conversation wasn't working, then choose what works, like anonymous survey and the likes. Now, let me quickly say this. I once worked with MD CEO, you know, getting management buy-in. And the man at some point, when we're having the conversation, told me something, that the fact that, because then I remember we're deploying balanced scorecard as the performance management tool. So I was running everybody through from end to end, start to finish, and all of that. So I was having some challenges with the line managers, no one to, you know, accept that balanced scorecard. So I was running training back and forth. Now, at some point, before that, I was able to get the MDCU to buy into it. Even though he signed a statement buying into deployment of that model, but eventually, at some point, he told me that the fact that he signed does not mean that he totally bought into that deployment. And that was shocking. Now, why am I saying this? No, I'm serious. This is a reality. This is reality. Now, why am I saying this? Sometimes you might have a statement made by the executive leadership, but in an environment where you have too much of nepotism, that buy-in from the executive management will not still eventually work. I give an example. There was a time where we had an open conversation like a village meeting, and somebody spoke about a process, a deficient process, and propel, you know, far better solutions to how that process should run. I am telling you, because of the high volume of nepotism in that system, the person, that staff, was from even beyond the executive, from the board. It is that bad. From the board, the executive management got a mandate to terminate that staff. But because it will be a wrongful termination and all of that, they have to manage the whole, you know, issues around that, just because he spoke the truth in an open conversation. What happened to him eventually? He was transferred to a far business district where his voice will never be heard. So the point I'm making is that if an open conversation doesn't work, in line with what my former MDCO told me, that the fact that they signed to it does not mean they fully bought into it. So you must understand what works in your environment. An environment where you have high nepotism, what works ordinarily will not work in that environment. That is my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tayo. And Yeli, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. But Coach Lara, you mentioned no retaliation policy. Was that policy signed by In Essential, right? So was that policy signed by everyone, or was just like a verbal policy that everybody just knew that was what was obtainable?
It was part of our organizational policy. I mean, all our policies were on our portal. And once the policies were published, they share it around the entire organization. At some point, we have to do trainings, right, on those policies. So yes, they didn't have to sign physically, but it was part of the policies that we all had as an organization that bounds everyone.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Thank you. And thanks to TD and I remember his name. Yeah, the other guy.
Okay. Thank you everyone for coming out this Easter Sunday evening to learn. We are 21 on the call. Thank you, team, for amazing job yet again. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to hear one word from everyone. I mean, what's your key takeaway from today's learning? In 1 minute, I mean, it's 8 o'clock already, we have another call. Your key takeaway from this learning today, everyone, just one word, what's your key takeaway? It's a learning session. Bimpe, can we have you? Bimpe, are you here? Adetutu, what's your key takeaway?
I'm here.
Okay, Bimpe, what's your key takeaway? One word.
Okay, well, I learned a lot today, but what I really learned was when you spoke about the non-retaliation policy, I think maybe a lot of organization needs to adopt that, because most times when you create a policy or you implement a policy, people always feel that you have the policy against them. And that's because we also talk about trust. Most people in our organization don't trust HR. Right. I think as HR professionals, we need to work on the trust levels in the organization before we can accomplish a lot more.
Awesome. Thanks, Bimpe, for sharing that. Okay, who wants to go next? Ade Tutu, are you still on the call? Or Tutu has dropped off.
Hello.
Tutu, she's dropped off.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Tutu, is that you?
No, this is not Tutu. This is Idris on the line. Sorry.
Idris, hi. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm new here, and I actually joined the meeting quite late. But I still got a few points when we were talking about the retaliation policy. I think most organizations really need to adopt that, because it actually helps in when you are trying to change the culture of an organization. Most organizations from afar, you just see them, you feel they're like a very big organization, or they have a very good culture, or they have a lot of policy in place that work well. But when you move in there, you find out that a lot of things are actually going in there that are quite wrong. So the retaliation policy actually can help out in achieving the change management we really want to achieve.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Oh, all right, because of time, I'll not be able to go around everyone to share their learnings, but please let's go to the group chats and please send in your learnings in the group chat. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Mary. Mary states, be intentional in building trust. TDA to everyone, continuously build credibility and let our people be able to trust us. Confidentiality and discretion should be constantly worked upon. I think it is a given for all coaches and intending coaches in the house. On that note, I'd like to appreciate every one of you once again for coming out again to learn this evening. Thank you, Team 4, for that amazing and great job. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Sis, Kausara, good evening. I know we have another session now, so we'll have to jump off this call. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you, and please share your learnings in the group chat, please. Everyone, your key takeaway. Let the conversation continue on the group chat. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. Bye. So we'll meet next week again. Team 5 will be sharing their learning with us. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.